Hey guys, welcome back to the Puro Wrestling Academy. I am your co-host, Ray Russell, along for the ride. Can't wait to learn some more this week with the man with the plan, the professor of Puro Wrestling himself. Welcome back, Mr. Dan Ginnetty. Dan, welcome back. Can't wait to jump into it again this week.
I can't wait either. Thanks for having me back. And ladies and gentlemen, class is in session.
Man, I just beat the bell every week. Thank God. I don't even want to know what happens if I don't. Yeah,
I don't feel tardy.
Hey, I don't think you're allowed to use that. Oh, you said tardy. Never mind. Okay, so we are here in 1955, Dan, and we were talking off air before we got into the show here this week, and you constantly do your digging around, research. Hey, did I miss anything? And you go back and you find new things out, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But we were talking wrestling magazines, and everybody loves a good wrestling magazine. At least they did in my era. But they happened also in other countries. Obviously, I saw a guy online posting about grabbing hold of a lot of new lucha magazines. But you were talking about the old Puro Wrestling, the old Japanese wrestling magazines, which go all the way back at least to the 1950s.
I love them, wrestling magazines. I'm embarrassed to tell you how many thousands of wrestling magazines I have.
Don't be embarrassed.
I probably have more than 1,000 Japanese wrestling magazines. Like you just said, my research never stops. I'm always looking and usually translating Japanese websites of wrestling fans that are posting things that they discover. And I came across information regarding a couple of wrestling magazines that were released and started publication in 1955.
Wow.
To be honest, I knew that they existed, but I didn't know much about them. And I was able to find more information. So okay. I will divulge that now because we're still in the year 1955. We haven't even made it halfway through the year. So I don't feel like this is missing information or errata that we would have to add later. This is within the context of 1955. So I'm taking credit for the fact that it's still 1955 and I'm going to talk about it.
I love it.
Thanks. I just trying to keep it accurate as possible so we don't have to go back and add new things. The first magazine is called Monthly Fight. And from March 55 on, Monthly Fight started featuring pro wrestling coverage with Rikidozan on the cover, Primo Carnera on the cover. And this magazine, as far as I can tell, with my research, would run all the way to 1957, and I believe it would stop publication. Okay. But for over 2 years in the mid-50s, this magazine was featuring just pro wrestling. Now think about this. The first issue is released in March. To have a March cover date means that thing probably had to be out. If it's anything like American publishing, that thing was probably out in January of 1955. How many shows had Rikidozan held by January of 1955? Yeah, Not too many.
I go back and I think about, the WWF in the 1980s, and they were 3 months. It took them 3 months to produce something that they were putting together. And that was in the 1980s. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to curiosity of how far back it went and how many episodes or how many events took place. You're right to even have a magazine.
Yeah. So what are they talking about in those magazines? Now, someday when I have the funds, I might start procuring some of them because, as you might imagine, they're pretty expensive. They're probably almost $100 an issue. I'm curious to see if they have house show results or if it's more of the high-level profiles, pictures of the wrestlers, pictures of them in action, right, and more generic coverage as opposed to specific coverage. But I'd be curious to see what they have. And like I said, the fact that they came up with the idea and started publication, were able to publish the issue within less than a year of Rikidozan starting to run shows in Japan, shows how popular Japanese professional wrestling became, because they wouldn't be making magazines if they didn't think they could sell them.
What intrigues me about that is, obviously, clearly, we've already seen a lot of things going on to where Rikidozan and maybe some other people as well kind of get an idea of what professional wrestling is, at least the Western version of pro wrestling. But I'm curious how a magazine would handle that in the 1950s in Japan, because it was very much a sport. So that would be interesting to see how it's handled in those mags.
Yeah, and that's what I'm super curious about, because I'm wondering if the journalists that contributed to these magazines, if they knew any better. Like, right, did they have the same sensibilities as an American sports journalist, especially in the 50s when their view of pro wrestling was somewhat, tongue in cheek almost.
Right.
The second magazine that came out featuring pro wrestling was Baseball Magazine. Shaw had a sports magazine, monthly sports magazine.
Uh-huh.
And in June of 1955, I believe, they had a special issue just dedicated to pro wrestling.
A baseball magazine had a issue dedicated to pro wrestling. Okay.
Correct, because they said, hey, this thing's getting
big. How big
it
is. That's right. Yeah.
Let's try to sell some magazines. I think they had 5 or 6 special issues from the middle of 1955 to the end of 1955.
Wow.
And by the beginning of 56, they said, okay, we have something here. We don't need to have special issues anymore. We will just start a monthly magazine called Monthly Pro Wrestling. And this would run all the way through 1956. And starting in 1957, the company that was publishing this magazine merged with the company that owned Boxing and Wrestling Magazine. And that became the new title. And that's something that existed and continued for many years after. I won't go too far in advance. I feel like we could do an entire episode just on Japanese wrestling magazines, including like Weekly Fight, which was more of a newspapery kind. I mean, I'd love to talk about all that stuff because for the wrestling fan that wasn't at every show live, this is the only way you got info. You watched the television shows when they happened and you read about it. That's the only way you know anything of pro wrestling in Japan as a fan back then, unless you were able to go to the shows live. So I feel like we can emulate the experience of your average Japanese wrestling fan back in 1955 if we have the magazine and if we at least know the TV result. And I think that's kind of fun to do.
So not only were we talking about the magazines offline, which I'm a huge magazine connoisseur as well. Unfortunately, as time evolved, they became more popular, right? On eBay, they cost a whole lot more now than they did, say, 20 years ago. So I can't necessarily collect them like I used to when I used to go to the flea markets and the thrift store type places in the 1990s and got them for a couple dollars. That's not happening anymore. My old Boxing and Wrestling early 50s magazines, I got, $3, maybe $5 on a bad day. That's not happening anymore, unfortunately.
I really look back fondly on the early days of eBay in like 1996, when I would be searching for Ric Flair memorabilia. And I found that if I spelled Ric Flair's name wrong, there would be somebody who would post items under the wrong name and the algorithm wouldn't link to it. So I was like getting smart with my searches and I was able to score some stuff. I believe I've told this story, but the Weekly Pro Wrestling that came out in 1983.
Okay.
I bought, I want to say 500 issues off of Japanese eBay, had a buddy in Japan who would buy the item for me and then he would ship them to me. And out of nowhere, he says, okay, I got this bid. I got the magazines. Can you give me $3,000? And I said, excuse me?
Wow.
He said, I need $3,000 to ship all these boxes to you because it's going to be, each box is 45 or whatever the heck it was, almost $50 a box. And he said, I have 60 boxes of them because in the 90s, the size of the weekly magazines was over 100 pages. They were super thick, like almost like phone books. The early issues were not that bad, but once you get past issue like 200 or 300, they got really, really thick. And I wasn't expecting that. But again, I got those things, even with the shipping, I probably got each issue for $3 or less. So that was a win. That was probably like 2004. So
I don't want to go off topic. I apologize for that.
You already are.
No, you're talking Japanese magazines. That's great. I was going to go further off topic. You making me think about boxes of magazines. Way back, say 1996-ish, I was at a indoor flea market, and remember back in the day prior to pay-per-view, it was closed circuit. And if you went to a closed circuit event, say WrestleMania 1, guys, 1985. They sold the merchandise locally in that arena or in that building. So you got the magazine, the program, the shirt, whatever, you could buy it in that arena. Well, in the 1990s, like I said, around 96, I believe it was, I went to an indoor flea market and a guy had a full box WrestleMania 1 programs. Hulk Hogan, Mr. T on the cover. I was a teenager, Dan. I could not afford an entire box, although they were certainly affordable. I'm sure they were like $5 each or something coming from them. I only bought one. In hindsight, I want to kill myself. what a treasure trove I would have had if I just bought that whole box at the time or found a way to grab that entire box. But yeah, it was an entire box unopened from the old closed circuit when they were selling them. They had a whole box unopened of them, and he opened them and sold me one out of it. But I just thought about, man, if I could have had that entire box of WrestleMania, the original WrestleMania magazines.
The good old days. We'll chalk it up to being the good old days. Yeah. I mean, I bought so many After mags. Again, magazines, we could go on forever and never talk about anything for the next 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, we got to go off topic every once in a while and just have some fun here. Everybody enjoys it. They love wrestling. That's what they're here for. But you made me think about that, and I haven't thought about that in a long time. I want to kick myself. Although I really couldn't have done much about it at that age, so it's whatever.
No, it's missed opportunity. We'll call it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of, it's not a missed opportunity because we looked into this after the fact, and we're going to go back to the last episode and kind of cover a couple things that we didn't do in detail last time, Dan. And that was, we talked briefly off air about this, but we were touching on Rikidozan's 1955 United States tour. He went back to Hawaii. He went back to San Francisco, and there was some information here from that book you were discussing last time, Japan, the Rikidozan years, and there's some information, detailed information in regards to his teaming with Azumafuji and capturing the tag team titles there in the state of Hawaii, and we also discussed, how could Rikidozan have been suspended when he, quote unquote, suspended when he left the state of Hawaii to go to San Francisco and do the tour there. And we actually have detailed information now on how all of that went down.
Exactly. And I don't want to give the listeners short shrift because we mentioned it in passing saying, oh, that's weird. He got suspended, had to give up the title. But we have more information on that. We did more digging. And ladies and gentlemen, if you like Japanese pro wrestling, classic Japanese pro wrestling, you've got to get on Amazon, get that History of Japanese Pro Wrestling, the Rikidozan years. Get that book. It is invaluable. So much information, and I'm going to read some of it for you right now. In regards to Azumafuji, I don't know if we had mentioned, but he had reached the Yokozuna level, which is the highest rank in sumo, and he became a member of the JWA. We know that. Shinsaku Nita, who is already Rikidozan's patron, he's also Azumafuji's patron, basically a financial supporter and someone who supports their efforts. During their sumo days, he set up the deal between Rikidozan and Azumafuji so that Azumafuji could get trained. Wow. And also to kind of keep Rikidozan in check because, as you can imagine, now that he's got magazines featuring him, he is filming movies. Yeah. He's kind of letting his ego is expanding exponentially. So now they're introducing a guy who did better in sumo than he did. And Rikidozan's going to train him, but Nita's using him to try to tamper Rikidozan's behavior, which you could probably predict will have zero effect on him. Yeah,
well, it's like, we'll let you be Hulk Hogan, but maybe with him sitting by your side, you'll keep yourself in check because you realize in real life, this guy was better than you in the sumo.
Yeah, so even though Nita bailed him out, helped him in sumo, and helped him get started in pro wrestling, Rikidozan is starting to believe his own press, so to speak.
Sure.
And Nito hoped that bringing in the former grand champion of Azumafuji would deflate the ego, but it didn't work.
Well, good luck. I was going to say good luck with that.
Well, Rikidozan was probably smart enough to see what Nito was trying to do, so he developed a good relationship with Azumafuji and even had that back in the sumo days. So he welcomed him aboard.
Yes.
And
it must have gotten along clearly. He didn't feel threatened, obviously, like he did maybe with some of these other quote-unquote outsiders like a Kimura or Yamaguchi. Although he had working relationship with Yamaguchi as well, Kimura didn't work out so well. We talked about that last episode.
That is true. That is true.
Clearly, him and Azumafuji, they were sponsored by the same guy, Nita, you're talking about, and they worked together, so to speak. So I think Rikidozan felt comfortable around him, comfortable enough to train him and go to Hawaii with him and work with him here. They become Hawaii Tag Team Champions here, and he even allows Azumafuji to score the win, to win the belts.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to cover. I wanted to jump right to April 17th. We know that on April 10th, Azumafuji debuted a week later. A week within your debut. Talk about a push. He teams with Rikidozan in Honolulu to win the Hawaiian Tag Team title, also known as the Primo Trophy from Bobby Bruns and Lucky Siminovich. After both teams split falls, Azumafuji used a bear hug to defeat Bobby Bruns for the winning fall. this is Goldberg level push here, guys.
Sure. I mean, Bobby Bruns was the first he was the main event Gaijin on that first tour in 1951, and he's returned since then. I'd say Azumafuji, man, for a rookie, he's right up there with Otis Sistrunk at this point.
Are you watching Georgia again?
I am doing Georgia 81 right now with Jamie Ward. Thank you very much. But at the same time, I mean, they were both in the business about a week before they won tag belts. So
that is true. Otis Sistrunk. You got me by surprise with that. That brings back.
We got to name drop things here, man. We got to have fun.
We got to keep it fun. So let's keep it less fun for Rikidozan. On May 8th, Rikidozan unmasked the Zebra Kid after winning the second fall in his match, which was in Honolulu, Hawaii. And Azumafuji got involved and held the masked man's arm while Rikidozan removed Zebra Kid's mask, revealing him to be George Bolus, former Ohio State University athlete. Rikidozan was reported to have been suspended, while Azumafuji and Shikina were fined $150 and $50 respectively for their role in the unmasking. A lot of money back in the 1950s.
Sure.
Bolus continued to wrestle as a Zebra Kid, and Rikidozan would unmask him a second time in 1961. But we'll get to that when it happens.
Yeah, in Osaka. It's a different time.
Yeah, we're 6 years away from that still.
So we had speculated how, he got suspended, quote unquote suspended. He was actually leaving the one territory for another one, and they needed to write him out. And even in the 50s, guys, we were writing guys out with storylines, and he unmasked the heel, and he got himself in trouble.
Yep, the storyline exit, but there was a motivation for it. The truth is, while he was, quote, suspended, Rikidozan was actually starring in a movie. Sam Apollonia, Honolulu City supervisor, made a movie called The Story of Rikidozan based on the current best-selling book title of the same name. So now we have a best-selling book called The Story of Rikidozan.
You don't write a book overnight, Dan. This is 1955. And he's already got a book written about him, and it's a bestseller. I mean, when do you start writing this book? God.
I have no idea. This is like a Babe Ruth level star in Japan. About they were hungry for a star, and they were, everyone was willing to jump in with both feet. They bought
that story hook, line, and sinker because he was not a successful sumo. So this is all about being a pro wrestler, really.
100%. The book came out in 55. They're making a movie in 1955. And the book title is Doto no Otoko, which translates to Surging Masculinity. I will leave that there. The synopsis of the film says it is a Horatio Alger tale about a young boy not heavy enough to make the grade as a sumo-style wrestler, but who achieves fame and honor in international-style wrestling.
Wow.
So they're even kind of lending that Rikidozan is everyone's favorite, but he ain't the biggest guy. And that's the synopsis of the film. So there is a subplot in the film that had to do with Rikidozan being mistreated by his sumo stable master, which is true.
Right.
And in real life, it made his former master very angry, and Rikidozan had to apologize to him before the film was released to theaters to say, hey, sorry about this. It's nothing against you. It's kind of more of a fantasy story. It's a fictional tale, even though I'm hearing that it wasn't a fictional tale.
Right.
But to that guy's credit, who was upset, his former stable master, Rikidozan, was also a troublemaker, getting into trouble, gambling, getting into fights. So he was a kind of a headache to the stable master during those sumo days. So I could see why he'd be upset, thinking, why are you blaming all this on me when you were the one that was creating trouble for the entire sumo stable?
Yeah, and I don't know where you want to go next before we get to the tour, because I know Rikidozan's going to return. We talked about the Hawaii and San Francisco tours before he goes back to Japan here and runs his next tour, the JWA, likely with a lot of the money that he made over there in the United States. But I thought it was really interesting because we're going to talk about a few names here in a few minutes that travel to Japan for the next tour. And they just happen to be some of the guys that Rikidozan works in San Francisco, not just in the ring, but one-on-one. I'm talking about Bob Orton Sr., Jess Ortega, Mighty Ursus, and of course the Sharp brothers as well while he was there in San Francisco. But the Sharps aren't part of this upcoming tour, but I did find it interesting that, okay, Rikidozan steps in the ring in San Francisco against the likes of Orton Sr., the grandfather of Randy Orton, for those curious, yes. And then Jess Ortega, we'll talk a little bit more about him in a little bit as well. But he works these guys in San Francisco. I don't think it's a coincidence that I like these guys. I like working these guys. We get along. I like the way the matches flowed. Why don't I invite them to come back to Japan?
Yeah, I agree with you. And when you're in San Francisco and you're able to generate revenue and interest with this kind of match, copy and paste. Say, we're drawing fans here. There's no reason why I can't draw fans with you in Japan. They'll come flock because now we've kind of nailed down the kind of match we want to do. It kind of reminds me of, in a way of, in the lead up to WrestleManias, Vince would have the singles match guys that are going to perform on WrestleMania. They would wrestle each other leading up to WrestleMania and house shows to try to iron out what kind of match you want to do when you get to the really big pay-per-view. And in this case, he's doing the same thing. He's wrestling Bob Orton a bunch of times and then says, why don't you come with me? Well, we'll do this again. But now we've kind of fine-tuned the match a little bit. We found out what moves you can do easily, what moves look good, how it flows and the pacing of the match, all that stuff that they must think about when they do it. So we're going to get into that now. What I will say is Rikidozan arrives in San Francisco on May 10th. Azumafuji does not go with him. He continues training in Hawaii and fighting the unmasked Zebra Kid, George Bolus.
Okay.
So that's what Azumafuji's doing because, again, don't forget, he's only been wrestling for 4 weeks.
Yeah, a few weeks, yeah.
By the time Rikidozan leaves. So no matter where he goes, he's really in training mode. So he's going to stay in Honolulu up until the very end of June when he will meet up with Rikidozan, and we're going to get to that. So we'll shoot right to the last show, Reno, Nevada, June 26th. Rikidozan teams with Azumafuji against the Sharp Brothers and loses. And his final match in the States, or the continental United States, on June 28th, he defeats Gene Dubuque in 20 minutes. So that ends Rikidozan's American excursion. I want to say hits his 5th by now, but I don't really need to keep track of the number of his excursions. In this case, he's going there not to learn, but more to generate revenue to help promote and run the shows in Japan.
And indirectly, he's finding talent to bring back with him as well. Make some deals and make some, friends, so to speak, in regards to his future tours. But you're right. I mean, obviously, the main thing here is he's making cash and he's bringing it back and running his own promotion, his own tours.
Yep. And from these guys that he was fighting in California, 5 of them came back with him to Japan for a 3rd tour. So now this is being considered the 3rd official tour, I guess, for JWA. The leader was former heavyweight boxing champion Primo Carnera.
Oh, yeah.
That was the headliner, but it turned out that it was Jess Ortega who excited the spectators the most, primarily due to his massive size. Even though he was that big, he was able to take believable bumps, which made Rikidozan's chops look very effective. And I should say it at the time, Ortega and Bud Curtis were billed as the Central American Tag Team Champions.
Another one of those make-believe titles won in Rio de Janeiro, I am so sure. Central America, I guess that's kind of believable, right?
Yeah, I'll take it. It's close enough to Rio de Janeiro.
It's close. It's like the Conquistadors, somewhere in Latin America.
This line from the book, it makes me laugh. This is so pro wrestling. Rikidozan and Azumafuji continued to be billed as the Hawaiian Tag Team Champions.
Right, even though they were taken away. Right.
I love it. Pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Even though he got suspended on May 8th and the unmasking and all that. Nope. They just said, forget it. However,
no, we still want the belts. That's not the way we were.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, the fans didn't know.
No, absolutely not.
The world was small back then, so people didn't know things until much later. So they were unaware.
This tour begins, looks like July 15th, and it goes through September sometime. 35 cards on this tour. That's a lot of matches, huh?
I think it might be their biggest tour yet, and I'm not sure. It's close anyway.
I kind of remember one of the tours maybe being 42 shows, but it's damn near close.
Right. It's a heavy-duty tour, but they only have 5 foreigners, and we talked about them. Jess Ortega, Bud Curtis, Bob Orton Sr., Primo Carnera, and Hardy Kruskamp, who we had mentioned at some point. Right. And those guys, the last 2 guys, were only there for a couple weeks. But
Carnera was a big deal. He had to have been a big name draw, being a former world boxing heavyweight champion back in the 1930s and a hell of a wrestler. He broke into the wrestling business in the 40s after he couldn't be, you got to be in your prime to be the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing, guys. It was a legit sport, and wrestling maybe not so much, but Carnera just had a a great look about him. Maybe he wasn't the prettiest man on earth, but he still looked like a hell of a contender in the ring. You bought him as a main event superstar. I mean, he went in there and he wrestled guys like Luthez, and you did not bat an eye at the fact that he deserved that title shot.
No, he was a big dude, and he looked tough, and he looked frightening, even if he wasn't tough. So that guy, just looking at him and people thinking what's going to happen when Rikidozan fights him, that alone would draw a lot of fans. And speaking of fans, we can roll right into that tour that started on July 15th, in Kokukigan Sumo Hall. The very first show of the tour, 12,000 sellout, and it was televised.
TV, baby.
I love TV, and this one was on Nippon TV from 7:45 p.m. to 9:30, so you got almost a 2-hour time slot. And the 3 matches that were featured on television was Surigami versus Jess Ortega, Kokichi Endo versus Bud Curtis, and in a tag team non-title match, so I'm saying non-title, don't forget, they're still claiming they're the Hawaiian tag team champions, Rikidozan and Azumafuji would end up defeating Primo Carnera and Hardy Kruskamp. And it was 2-1, 2 falls to 1. You can guess who took the final fall. I'll give you a hint. It was not Primo Carnera. In fact, he never took a fall. Azumafuji pinned Kruskamp. Carnera pinned Rikidozan in 29 seconds for the second fall.
Yeah, Rikidozan taking a fall to Carnera in less than a minute, 29 seconds. Wow. I mean, it shows you they know the stature of Carnera and the drawing power that he can bring them. So, yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, this is booking 101. You can see the setup here. And then to get him some heat back, Rikidozan does get the pin over Kruskamp to seal the deal for the match. So that was in front of 12,000. These people had not seen wrestling since the February 7th Going Away show, TV show. So 5 months later, they were hungry for it, and 12,000 people came out. The next day, on the 16th, 13,000 people came to the same venue, still a sellout, still on TV. And one of the matches, we actually have an account of the match. From 1955, we can tell you some of the details of the match. The top 3 matches that aired on TV, 8 to 9:30 on Nippon TV. Kokichi Endo versus Primo Carnera.
Yep.
Primo gets the win in only 7 minutes. Kind of a squash if you think about it. Azumafuji faces Jess Ortega, and he wins 1 fall to nothing. Azumafuji wins by DQ in 9 minutes and 17 seconds, but then Azumafuji injures his eyes because Ortega's using his thumb. That's all that's written in like the technical results, but from the book we have access to, we have an account, and it says Ortega attacks Azumafuji and used illegal moves. When the former Yokozuna became groggy, Rikidozan gallantly jumped in the ring to punish the Mexican giant with his chops. The wrestling fans, upset over Ortega's treatment of Azumafuji, were satisfied when Rikidozan made his valiant save. Azumafuji was perfect to fill the vacant spot formerly held by Kimura during Rikidozan's first tour with Mike and Ben Sharp. So that one last sentence, a declaration that Azumafuji was perfect to fill the vacant spot formerly held by Kimura during Rikidozan's first tour with Mike and Ben Sharp. So it's like saying there's a new sheriff in town.
And he's better than Kimura.
Yeah. And he very likely could have been. It sounded like Kimura wasn't much for selling and was too much of a legit fighter to understand kind of like what pro wrestling was supposed to be, the performative aspects, where maybe Azumafuji isn't. And we'll have a chance to see Azumafuji footage as time goes by. I believe there's some of it on some of the old tapes that we have.
I'm just looking at that match and having those results. That's pretty cool. The Rikidozan run-in to make the save. How Americanized is that, Dan? I mean, think about that. This is Japan in the 1950s. I feel like, you can watch Japan in the 1980s. We're not watching a lot of run-ins and making the saves even then. So I think it's more Americanized here in the 50s than it was, say, 30 years from now to some degree in regards to American storytelling.
Yeah, this is not dissimilar to, you could see something like this playing out on any Nitro or Raw.
Sure, in certain names. Yeah, change the names. Absolutely.
It is a classic thematic device in the story of pro wrestling, easily. And it's fun to see. And when you read the account, it's like, oh my gosh, the fans must have been going absolutely bonkers for something like this. Because a lot of these things that the fans in Japan are seeing in the ring, these tropes that we think are almost like meme worthy. Oh my gosh, it's so cliche.
Yeah.
It's the first time they're seeing it.
Ever. First time ever done.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor it or go off topic, but the first time I saw a heel turn good when I was a wrestling fan was the biggest thing ever. When I saw Superfly Snuka turn from a bad guy into a good guy when it was revealed that Lou Albano was stealing his money.
Right.
And Buddy Rogers agreed to represent him.
Yeah.
It was, my mind was blown in 1982, I think it was.
I'm having flashbacks right now with the Azumafuji getting the beat down and Rikidozan making the same. It's like the Macho Man, getting beat down, and here comes Elizabeth. She got Hogan. He's coming out from the back, and here we go. So, and that's where Rikidozan was with the fans at this point.
Yep, run-ins work. So that match is fun to talk about, but check out this main event. Rikidozan and Surigami in the main event against Bob Orton Sr. and Hardy Krustkamp, and Rikidozan and Surigami win 2-1. Now, Surigami takes the only pin, but this guy is in the main event of a televised 13,000-person sellout in Kokukigen Sumo Hall. That is a push. And we've been talking about Surigami based on the first tour, his win-loss rating, and just based on that, you could see that he was probably being positioned to be a big deal. Turns out he is. He's in the main event.
Yeah, and I know eventually here he's going to become the quote-unquote first ever Japanese junior heavyweight champion, so they're clearly putting some kind of stock into Surigami. So he's just one of those half dozen names you guys really got to pay attention to moving forward here over the next year or two.
Yep. Third night of the tour, third consecutive TV. They've done this before for the other tours where the first 2 or 3 nights are all televised. Still 13,000, still a sellout. The Nippon TV airs from 8 to 9:30. NHK television goes from 8 to 9:45. So 15, they do a 15-minute overrun like the Nitros used to in the old days. And this main event is something that they built up to on the first show of the tour. And we'll get to it. Jess Ortega defeats Toyombori in 7 minutes, 59 seconds. That match aired on TV. The semi-main was Bob Orton and Bud Curtis defeating the team of Azumafuji and Kokichi Endo. 2-1.
And who takes both falls?
Who takes both falls is Kokichi Endo. Who gets the only fall for their team? Azumafuji. So we see the push is still in full effect.
Yeah, we see the pecking orders changed a little bit here. Endo's kind of been pushed down a notch.
Yep, but he's still in the semi-main.
Oh, yeah.
Still making money.
Oh, I'm not questioning any of that. I'm just saying it looks like Azumafuji, based on what we saw in the States and what we're seeing now, it's clearly a favorite of Rikidozan to kind of get into that position, that semi-main, that Macho Man spot.
The main event is Rikidozan against Primo Carnera. So
the
they
finish.
gave you 2 days to build up, and Rikidozan defeats him 2 straight falls. 6 minutes, 38 seconds by DQ, the first fall. Second fall, 1 minute, 30-second pin.
Wow.
So this best out of 3 falls match goes 8 minutes and 8 seconds of bell-to-bell time. So that is a pretty strong defeat for Primo Carnera.
Yeah,
and it happened within the first 3 days of the tour. So we've kind of built it up and knocked it down in 3 days.
Right, and I'm curious to see if there's any more TV before Carnera leaves or if that's the end of his TV. I don't know. I haven't looked ahead. But that's very interesting the way that played out, and it's storytelling 101 over those 3 days in regards to Rikidozan and Carnera. Carnera got his fall, but Rikidozan comes back with a vengeance. 2 falls in a row there.
Yeah, Rikidozan definitely gets his revenge there. They wrestle on the 19th. They wrestle. JWA has a show on the 19th in Kanayama Gym in Nagoya. 7,000 people are there. Nothing of note. When you only have 5 guys, foreigners wrestling, you know what the top 3 matches are going to look like. Mm-hmm. You got Surigami, Toyombori, Kokichi Endo, Rikidozan, Azumafuji. If you just jumble them up and pull names out of hats.
Right.
And they're going to form your top 3 or 4 matches of every single show.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnetty. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. And of course, now would be a fantastic time to become a WrestleCopia patron. I'm talking about that $5 all access tier over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia, where you get so many gifts for just $5, including all of my insanely detailed show notes for every episode of The Grenade Show, Regional Wrestling, and the Monday Warfare podcast. You'll also get early access to a lot of the podcasts here on the WrestleCopia brand, where you can listen days and sometimes as much as a week earlier than the rest of the listeners. We also offer remastered versions of the earliest episodes of The Grenade Show, covering the 1989 NWA project. Includes enhanced sound quality, plus new content and conversation never heard before. But that's still not all, guys. You also get at least a dozen digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure each and every month, plus random bonus video drops, and of course, the Patreon exclusive Watch Along series, covering many past WWF and WCW events. And if that's not all, videocasts, also now a part of Patreon. And for those who like all of their podcasts in one nice, neat little pile, the WrestleCopia Patreon also offers a Patreon exclusive Spotify account. You can actually go over to your Spotify with your WrestleCopia Patreon credentials. Instead of listening or downloading directly from Patreon, you can go over to Spotify, listen to all the latest shows, including all of the early releases. And you get all of that and so much more for just $5. No subscription, cancel anytime. Give it a try for a month, guys. I think you'll like the content that I offer, and every penny of it goes right back here into paying the bills. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia. Help me pay some of the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and all of the great shows here up and running for the months and the years to come.
On the 22nd in Osaka, they wrestle in front of 10,000 people. A lot of non-title tag matches here, if you can even have a title match when you really don't have the title, but the fans don't know it. To answer your question about Primo Carnera appearing on TV before he leaves.
Smart TV, yes, I see.
There it is. July 23rd, Osaka Prefectural Gym, 12,000 people. It doesn't say a sellout, but it is on TV. Nippon TV gives them a 90-minute time slot, and the top 3 matches will air. The top 3 matches being Azumafuji getting a double count out with Jess Ortega, which is better than taking the loss. Primo Carnera gets a pin over Torian Bori, so at least he can
gets his heat back.
Get some heat back on his way out.
Right.
And in a non-title tag match, Rikidozan, how can it be non-title? I don't get the non-title part. Rikidozan and Kokichi Endo in the main event defeat the team of Bob Orton Sr. and Bud Curtis in a 61-minute time limit draw. Rikidozan gets a pin over Orton in 31 minutes, 19 seconds. And then they go another 29 minutes. 29 minutes and 41 seconds.
So Rikidozan's team is the only team that scores a win there in that full hour.
Yeah, and looking at the times of the other two matches, you may have gotten that uncut, like the entire 61-minute draw.
Right.
There was enough time, maybe with commercials, I don't know. But the bell time is 61. Who knows? You might have had time.
It's just amazing booking. I'm not talking about Rikidozan himself, but just the entire situation. When you look at it, we saw the fall where Rikidozan loses to Carnera, which is shocking because he doesn't really do jobs anyway. 30 seconds. I mean, I can't imagine what the spot was where he took him down that quickly, but he comes back with a vengeance, scores 2 falls to 0, defeats Carnera, and then they know on his way out, we've got one more TV, and we're going to put him over strong. He scores a win in 7 or 8 minutes there, does Carnera. So they could bring him back, potentially bring him back again if they need to, and say, hey, man, he lost that one match, but he's still a tough guy.
That is absolutely true. And yet, on July 24th, they have another TV episode. And this one has a rematch with Rikidozan and Primo Carnera as the main event. Nippon Television gives them 90 minutes, 8 to 9:30. NHK, again, a second time gives them that extra 15-minute run over. Top 3 matches are on. Bob Orton defeats Surigami in 16 minutes and 47 seconds. There's a non-title match claiming, I don't know what title it is, but it's Jess Ortega and Bud Curtis. That's the title they had, the Central America title. It was a non-title match, though, and they defeated the team of Azumafuji and Kokichi Endo, 2 falls to 1. Azumafuji gets a fall. Endo takes the next 2 falls for the loss. And in the main event, Rikidozan defeats Primo Carnera, this time 2 falls to 1. Carnera gets the pin in the first fall, 6 minutes, 42 seconds. Rikidozan pins Carnera twice, the next 2 falls in less than 2 minutes for each fall.
2 things here. A, I was trying to put Rikidozan over for being a great booker, but clearly he was just building Carnera up to defeat him again. That was point number 1. Point number 2, you notice these matches and the time of the falls and the matches that involve Rikidozan and Carnera, they don't go very long. Lots of pinfalls in a minute, 2 minutes. I don't know what the situation there is with that. I guess Carnera wasn't known as a 60-minute man per se, but Rikidozan, I mean, wow, it's just kind of interesting to see how short some of these falls are.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering. If he's coming from a legitimate boxing background, maybe he's not one of those guys that you go into deep water with. He's more for show. He has his moves, and you get in and you get out fast, because the longer fans see him, the more he doesn't look like a pro wrestler. I don't mean to cast aspersions. I'm just making a guess that perhaps that's why these matches aren't running very long.
I can see that. Well, Carnera had been in the wrestling business probably, not just about 10 years at this point. And he'd worked guys like Lou Thez. Now, I'm not saying that I've seen all of these Carnera matches. There's not very many that exist on video. But I'm assuming with the right person, he can be led to a certain amount of time in the ring. But Rikidozan is probably not that guy to lead you around. We've seen some of his matches thus far, like with Kimura. He's capable of going in there and having a match, but I don't know that he's going to lead Carnera to a 30-minute classic. So like you said, rather than expose anything, and a heavy hitter as Carnera was as a boxer, let's get in and let's get out. Let's throw some blows and let's take this thing home. Yeah,
don't forget, he had only started his first tour, Rikidozan, after a training excursion 18 months ago or 15 months ago. So he's not a seasoned professional, I wouldn't say. He's still very young in his career. And Carnera's probably not the guy that he's going to be able to go, let's go 40 minutes on this. We'll figure it out. Right. Carnera might need help. As far as wrestling through Lou Thez, I could get out my Lou Thez biography book. I was lucky enough to be on the internet in the 90s. And somehow I discovered that he was writing a book, and I got what they call it, a galley copy. It's kind of like a permabound. It's like a ring-bound version where it's not fully published yet.
Wow, okay.
And he autographed it to me. He signed it to me. That's
and
just
you might
the
as well
things.
go buy yourself a mansion with some of the stuff you're sitting on.
I did that and the Strangler Lewis autograph. I'm all set. This is the things that were on the internet in the 90s all day long, and nobody cared. I did, so I bought it. But it's, I don't know. I was just, when you mentioned him wrestling Lou Thez, I thought Lou Thez probably had something to say about that in his book. All right, so we have another date here. There are no shows until July 28th. At this point, after that July 24th show, Primo Carnera and Hardy Crustcamp would leave, and they would tour the Philippines. So now we're down to 3 outsiders. So I'm curious, we'll take a look at how this card is manufactured. On July 28th, they're in Korakuen Stadium, though. Ooh. You might know Korakuen Hall that held 1,800 to 2,300, depending on who's lying about the attendance. Korakuen Stadium held 15,000 people, and this was a televised show. They got an hour and a half time slot from Nippon TV, no surprise there. But I want to take a look at the entire card just to see what a card is going to look like when you only have 3 outsiders wrestling. And I don't have information on some of the undercard guys. Some of them came and went, and they didn't make much of an impact. And if I find out information, we'll give it to you later, because they'll still be here next year in 1956.
My God, this thing's time limit draw mania here. It looks like on the undercard, these guys.
Can you imagine? And this is, I have no idea why they're doing this. It's killing me, unless it's a bunch of new guys and they're essentially peers on the pecking order. So what's a draw mean? It just means that they're both on the exact same level. Maybe
but to do it every match, it's like all these guys are expendable, right? Like we can do a job to somebody here. It's so odd that the first 4 matches, all names I'm not familiar with. I've seen a couple of them on the other tour. Most of them I have not seen until this tour. But to do 4 matches in a row, 15-minute time limit draw is just really odd.
That's not cool. And it's on a TV taping. So it reminds me of, I went to one set. Here we go again. In 1998, I went all the way up to Portland, Maine, and I saw a WCW Saturday Night TV taping. Oh, my goodness. We were there for so long. It was torturous. And these poor guys, the ring announcer was getting in the ring, timing when we're coming back from a commercial break and trying to get the crowd to react. It was horrible. I feel like it was jury duty for me. It was tough to watch. It was tough. So I'm imagining the fans there going, all right, this is a TV taping. I can't wait to see what's on TV, and then be hit with undercard time limit draw, bang, bang, bang.
Wow.
But let's go through it. It sounds horrible. It might not have been horrible. Fujitayama, 15-minute draw with Asao Yoshiwara. I know of Asao. The first name reminds me of somebody that might have been involved with the IWE later. Sunagoro Rashomon, I think that's the 6'8" dude.
That's the big dude, yeah. Which we really haven't talked about here yet.
No, we'll get to him. And like you said on your extended show notes, or how do you refer to your show notes?
Insanely detailed show notes.
Thank you. Insanely detailed show notes. You've got some pictures of him on a movie set and some other stuff that can give you an idea on how humongous this guy was. And we're still left wondering why they didn't try to make more money with him. He goes to a draw against Takeo Kaneko. Teizo Watanabe, 50-minute draw against Toshikazu Higa. And the last time limit draw, Osama Abe against Tomio Miyajima. Boy, I don't know any of these dudes. But here's a bunch of dudes we do know. Okay. Yoshino Sato brought in, and we knew about him from last year against Yosef Turko, defeating Yosef Turko. Toyombori defeats Suragami. Wow, interesting. So Toyombori had debuted earlier, I think at the end of
the year. Yeah, December 22nd, maybe? Something like that.
Yeah. I think it was supposed to be, but did he miss it and then not debut?
There was one prior, and he didn't work that one. It might have been, it was somewhere around, like he missed one and he worked the next one after that.
Yeah, my memory is failing me. So they've already got Toyombori getting a pin over Suragami, but Suragami is also in the 3rd match from the top of what appears to be not an 8-match show. So not a bad place to be. Kokichi Endo against Bob Orton, another draw, 45-minute draw. You're
How long
killing
was this
me.
Show? This feels like an old WWF TV taping.
You're killing me, Smalls. That is tough. That's tough. And then for the Hawaiian and Central America Tag Team double title match, Rikidozan Azumafuji go to a no contest, I guess, against Jess Ortega and Bud Curtis. Curtis gets a fall over Azumafuji in 19 minutes, 12 seconds. Rikidozan with a fall against Curtis in 7:52. And the third fall, 1 minute and 12 seconds in. Both are injured. Now, I don't know if it's both teams injured or both active ring participants are injured, so they can't tag out. So anyway, a schmoz finish for the end.
Kind of a weird finish there. I'd like to have a little more information on that. I'm curious how both injured worked out. But yeah, it does look like it's going to be a tie here, a no contest, if you will.
I think the only matches that are on there are Kokichi Endo versus Orton, which is the 45-minute draw. And then the tag match, there's more than enough time to get both of them complete. So the fans were treated to quite the sight on this television episode.
And it did not take long for Rikidozan to figure out, just make up some titles if you need to do that, because he did it last tour, the second tour of last year in 54, and he's doing it again here, 2 different tag team titles that don't necessarily exist, with the Central America and the Hawaiian titles, which they did lose. They were stripped of those belts, so we've got 2 titles on the line, and neither one of them are real.
Yeah, neither one of them are real, and neither team is willing to give up their not real titles.
Well,
so they go to it.
Wow,
they go to a draw.
I'm not dropping my hypothetical belt here.
All right.
God bless wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. July 31st in Omiya, Saitama, at a bicycle racetrack, they draw 15,000 people.
Those are the best.
Wrestling is, talk about hot. 15,000 people to a racetrack.
Well, it gets a lot bigger in the next day.
It does, and only way you can get bigger than a racetrack, ladies and gentlemen, is to go to a pool. And on August 1st, 1955, in Osaka, the Ogimachi Pool, 25,000 people come to see. I
think that is the largest number we've seen thus far, if I remember correctly.
I'm thinking. I remember something about a 30,000 person house, but okay. I've been making charts and documents for 1956 and 57, so it may have been on there. 25,000 is a lot of people to come see a show, and it's on TV. This one is the NHK version, so it gets the this is a kind of a truncated listing here. It's 8:30 to 9:45, so they only get an hour and 15 minutes for this broadcast. That gives them time to air the top 2 matches. It's the same old people. We're still looking at Bob Orton, Jess Ortega, and Bud Curtis are the only outsiders, and they take up the top 2 matches. So Kokichi Endo defeats Bob Orton, 2 falls to 1. Endo pins him in 1902. Orton takes the second pin in 12:42. Endo with the winning by DQ in 2 minutes 45 seconds. Kokichi Endo gets a win on TV, which is something that Masahiko Kimura could never do.
Well, that's true.
Oh, no.
Beats Bob Orton Sr.
That is true. Another
double title
match. Rikidozan Azumafuji, Jess Ortega, and Bud Curtis. How does this one end up? Azumafuji gets a pin on Curtis in 27 minutes, 31 seconds. Jess Ortega gets a submission by Boston Crab in 17 minutes over Azumafuji. And then they go the time limit. 61-minute time limit with Azumafuji as a tag team partner. If he survives this match, if we were to watch this match and he acquitted himself well during a 61-minute draw, this guy has been wrestling for 3.5 months. You have the makings of a superstar here if he was able to keep things together and not totally blow up.
Yeah, if only we could see, this matchup to see how it plays out. You're absolutely right, because Rikidozan isn't exactly, 10 years in the business himself. And then to bring Azumafuji in, who's only been a few months in the business. But Curtis was a very solid hand, and he knew his way around the ring by this point in his career. Jess Ortega, for those who don't know, he was kind of like a bigger guy, a very stout, broad-shouldered, big-bellied kind of guy, but he could bump. And that's kind of why Rikidozan liked to work with him, because he would throw those chops, and for a guy that size, it made your chops look more powerful when you're flying around the ring for this guy. So Rikidozan loved working with Jess Ortega. That's why he was brought over here. That's why he worked with him so much, because there's some footage of this out there, those two guys getting in the ring. He's kind of like a bull, the Mighty Ursus, he also went under the name as. But Jess Ortega was kind of like a big dude, right? So to get in there and work these matches, he was a competent professional wrestler, don't get me wrong, but he also made Rikidozan look like a superstar, a superhero by the way he bumped around the ring for his judo chops, if you will.
Yeah, the way they talk about him selling, you'd think he was Adrian Adonis before Adrian was Adrian Adonis.
Well, I don't know if he was Kurt Hennig, guys, but you can go check it out for yourself and look up Jess Ortega. He was good for his size, certainly. He definitely got around.
All right, so let's move on from there. August 3rd, they wrestle in Tokushima in the Civic Hall. We don't even have the attendance for it. And this is where you're going to find in the 50s and even into the early 60s, there are some dark spots. There's some missing bits of information in the history of pro wrestling. So there are parts where we don't have as complete information for these shows as we would like. And this is some of the things that I'm trying to track down. I'd love to be able to fill in the blanks to make a more complete history.
So what's fun about these shows, though, the next several shows that we're talking about, because Primo Carnera and that Crust Camp fellow left the tour, we're down to 3 Gaijin in here. They're always in the semi-main and the main event slots. And underneath them, usually it's like Surigami and Yoshino Sato, guys we're going to continue to talk about as the shows go on here. But really, it's interchangeable between Orton, Jess Ortega, and Bud Curtis as far as the Americans go. And then Endo, Rikidozan, and Azumafuji, for the most part, as far as the Japanese talent goes, in the top 2 matches on the card. So really a lot of interchangeable finishes, interchangeable matches between those 6 guys moving forward.
I would say that trying to book it that way, it's still okay because you're in the infancy of television. It's not every week. The coverage of these shows is sparse to non-existent through the mainstream media. You could almost do carbon copies of every show and just take that show on tour, almost like you were doing a Broadway play. The lines are the same. It's just you're doing it in front of a different crowd every night, and sometimes that's good enough. But they do mix
Hogan era WWF, really. I mean, when you think about it.
It was tough. And the sad part about that is they had so much TV, and it was still the same.
And you saw the same finishes and things of that nature sometimes.
That's tough. August 4th, Takamatsu City Gym. They would actually go there on the 5th as well. Different results for the main event, but it's still the same players. Kokichi Endo, Bob Orton, and then Rikidozan Azumafuji against Ortega and Curtis. That's going to be your top 2, your semi-main, your main for all these shows. August 6th in Kochi in front of the Municipal Sumo Ring, 15,000 people in Kochi. Matsuyama is the next night, or August 8th anyway, in front of 6,000 people at the Ehime Prefectural Civic Hall. There's incomplete results on August 10th in Miyazaki in a baseball stadium, this time in front of 7,000 people. We only have the top 2 matches of Azumafuji versus Bob Orton and Rikidozan and Endo against Ortega and Curtis. Same with the 11th. We only have the top 2 matches in Kagoshima and don't even have attendances. I have a 15,000 person show in the 13th of August in Kumamoto.
That's nothing to bat your eye at when you're drawing 15,000 in pretty much any arena that holds that much. I mean, that's like going back, in my results and my research and looking at when Orndorff turned on Hogan in 86, they were pulling numbers like this in all of the big arenas as they did the rounds. But this is just the infancy, and they're drawing this just out of the gate. There's no big heated rivalry storyline, right? This is proving Rikidozan is, in fact, Hulk Hogan before Hulk Hogan.
I agree 100%. And I would say that pro wrestling in general is now a marketable item or a marketable form of entertainment in Japan, as evidenced by all of these show attendances that we're looking at. Hiroshima, 10,000 people in their baseball stadium, 6,000. Then we're missing some results. Same main event until August 29th in Yokohama. They're going to go to another pool show, everybody, in the Nogiyama Park Pool in front of 10,000 people. We've got a TV show. So let's see if they mix things up at all for this one. It's on NHK TV from 7:45 to 9:30. So they're getting almost a 2-hour time slot for this one. And it appears that the top 2 matches aired on television. The semi-main was Azumafuji defeating Bud Curtis, 2 falls to 1. And he was able to pull that off in about 23 minutes total bell to bell. So that's Azumafuji getting a huge push because now he's beating Bud Curtis outright. And in a non-title match, it wouldn't have been, in this case, the Hawaiian tag titles. This one is the Central America tag titles. Rikidozan, I feel dirty even mentioning it because you know it's fake. Rikidozan and Kokichi Endo defeat Jess Ortega and Bob Orton in a non-title match. Rikidozan gets the fall over Ortega in 15 minutes, 51 seconds. And Endo gets either a pin or he gets a submission by Boston Crab over Bob Orton Sr. And this is on television. And based on these match times I'm looking, they have plenty of time to see all these matches. So you're seeing now Kokichi Endo on network TV. It's a Monday, but it's still prime time, getting the win for the Rikidozan team.
And with this being TV and giving Azumafuji a singles win here, clearly you're putting him over as someone more than just a high-level tag team competitor. As long as I'm with Rikidozan, then yes, we are a superior tag team. But now it's Azumafuji can hold his own here as a singles.
Yeah, so we're trying to parse out what elements of these tours invoke like traditional booking styles. And one of the observations that I also made was Azumafuji is having a meteoric rise on the cards here to the point now where he's being left as a single and still defeating some of these guys. So it looks to me as if he's getting a mega push here, and we'll see if that plays out in, going forward for the rest of the year with the other tour that they do. But we think we're seeing pro wrestling happen, and we think we're seeing traditional booking methodology being employed by Rikidozan. Occasionally, he'll do that thing with Primo Carnera, the up, down, up, down. I don't know what purpose that served. I think he could have probably made just as much money by building him up until right before he left and get the win over him then. But who knows? I mean, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. He made a ton of money either way. And maybe it was an agreement that with the NHK or Nippon TV that they said, hey, that's great that you want to build up and get a win over him at the end right before he leaves. We would rather you do that on our television program this week. And he's like, I don't care. Sure, whatever. You're paying the bill. So I don't know. I'm speculating on why they would blow off the Carnera Rikidozan singles match so quickly. But when TV's involved, sometimes these network executives have some authority, and you'll find out how much authority network executives have as time goes by in regards to Japanese pro wrestling.
Scrolling down, it doesn't look like our next TV is till near the end of the tour here on September 4th in Kawasaki Stadium. But wow, 20,000 fans again out here for another big TV program.
How dare you ignore the August 30 volleyball court show?
I apologize, everyone.
Volleyball court, bicycle, track.
5,000 people in the volleyball court, I'll have you know.
That's a lot of people at a volleyball court. Aizu Stadium has nothing. They sell out Fukushima Prefectural Gym, but I don't have a result or an attendance for it. And like you said, another bicycle racetrack show on September 3rd. September 4th is the TV show, which is almost the end of the tour. We're coming up on the end. This one's televised. Radio Tokyo Television. I never heard of that before. But we get a 2-hour time slot, which allows them to show the top 3 matches on the show. Surigami would defeat Yoshino Sato in 23 minutes and 3 seconds by pinning him. So I guess if we're looking at the hierarchy, Surigami is above Yoshino Sato, but Toyombori is above Surigami. So you've got your 3, and this isn't even counting Azumafuji. So now we're seeing 4 guys that are under Rikidozan, but they're on the way up because they're new. And then you've got Kokichi Endo, who might be like the SD Special Delivery Jones guy, successful mid-carder. He's never going to, be the top guy, but he's always going to be featured prominently on the cards.
Very generous to refer to SD Jones as a mid-carder.
I also was strangely focused on that gaping hole in his back from the stab wound.
Oh.
So we have Surigami against Yoshino Sato. Kokichi Endo goes to a 45-minute draw with Bob Orton. So that's no small feat there.
No, Rikidozan clearly protected these gaijins outside of wrestling them himself anyway, I mean, for the most part. If they were doing a job, and it looks like they have been here on TV, he's really showing you who he trusts beneath him. We saw Azumafuji go over on, I think it was Bud Curtis. I could be wrong. On TV, I mean. And now it's Endo going over on Bob Orton here.
Yeah, so he's really taking. If I was working under Rikidozan and I was one of these four guys, Surigami, Yoshino Sato, Endo, Azumafuji, even Toyonbori, I'd be nothing but happy. This guy, I think, is taking care of me if I'm in these positions. And
I have noticed, and we've scrolled through a few of them, but there's been a few non-televised shows where Rikidozan's even teamed with Toyonobori in the main event, and they've went over. So I feel like, he's taken those certain guys that you just mentioned, and he's taking care of them because he realizes these are the guys that we're going to work with.
Yep. I've tried to track some of the more undercard guys in these first 3 or 4 matches of the show to see if any of them are moving up constantly to the 4th match, like right before the top 3. And so far the answer is no. I can't find any rhyme or reason. Like on this show that's televised in front of 20,000 people, Toyonbori defeats Rashomon, the big tall guy, with a leg split. But then the very next show, Rashomon is in the curtain jerker with Yoshino Sato. So I don't know. Maybe it was an abbreviated show. I'm just trying to see, like, the undercard doesn't seem to have much rhyme or reason. A ton of time limit draws, which makes me think they're all brand new. So just let them get time in the ring in front of an audience and let them figure it out. They're all basically at the same level because they all probably started at the same general time.
It could be Jerry Lawler booking. I'll worry about my program and we'll figure out the rest when we get there.
Well, that worked for him for years until he hot-shotted the entire thing and then had to hand over a steaming pile of poop to Jerry Jarrett, who
Every
would
6
then
months.
build it back. It worked great for them, but that's a different podcast.
Yeah, I guess so.
So the main event, we finally make it to the main event of the September 4th show. Rikidozan and Azumafuji against Jesse Ortega and Bud Curtis. Rikidozan and Azumafuji win 2 falls to 1. Rikidozan gets both falls. Azumafuji takes the only fall for his team. And there's nothing about no titles in this. So I don't know what's going on. It's not mentioned at all about any titles. So I'm going to say that it wasn't a title match at all. I guess.
Well, technically it wasn't, Dan, if you want to really get down into it. But
at multiple levels, it was not a title match.
Absolutely.
We'll skip the 5th show. We talked about it already. The next day, it appears there might have only been 4 matches on the show because the bolded indication here means that the results are complete. A 4-match show in front of 4,000 people. The final show of the tour, September 7th. Let me make sure. Yep, it sure is. It's in front of 12,000 people, Tokyo Metropolitan Gym. And
this is what I've been waiting for here because I was going to say, I'll let you break it down any which way you want if you got anything you want to read or anything like that. But I just want to say before we get into the results here or anything else, I've been watching this very carefully as you've been going through this. And I've been watching these tag team main events with Rikidozan on one side and Jess Ortega on the other. Because if you watch the revolving door of guys in the semi-main, it was either Bob Orton or Bud Curtis in singles. Jess Ortega was almost always in the tag team match in the main event against Rikidozan. And if you look at the finishes, it's not Ortega taking a lot of falls either. So they've really been protecting Jess Ortega in his matches with Rikidozan. So I find the main event here in Tokyo very interesting.
Again, I'm reticent to use the term, but this appears as if Rikidozan's grooming Jess Ortega for this very main event on September 7th in front of 12,000 people, Tokyo Metropolitan Gym. And this is for the Mainichi Newspaper Cup. So it sounds like they sponsored the show to some degree.
And they're probably also helping some sick children somewhere as well.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I'm sure it's promoting and helping something. We're so charitable. Rikidozan defeats Jess Ortega 2 falls to 1. Ortega gets a fall over Rikidozan in 14 minutes, 23 seconds with a pin. Rikidozan takes the following fall, the second fall, in 26 minutes, 23 seconds with a pin. And then the third fall is from Rikidozan at 7 minutes, 28 seconds. So Ortega, who's no small dude, and Rikidozan, who's still relatively new to the wrestling world, they would go, almost 45 minutes?
Yeah.
No, they're almost 50 minutes,
50
in
minutes
the ring.
Yeah.
So the fans in attendance, those 12,000 fans, must have been wondering, if they had seen some draws before, going, oh gosh, this is definitely going to be a draw. We're already almost 50 minutes in. But then Rikidozan, to get the win, must have really gotten a good pop out of the crowd. That's what I'm guessing.
Interesting was it, too? We saw the first part of the tour where he used television to build up a quote-unquote feud or a storyline with Primo Carnera, which he slays the giant there. And then he uses the rest of the tour, if you're watching television, the tag team matches, to build up a big match up here with Jess Ortega on the final night of the tour. Now, this is not televised from what I can tell. Wish they would have saved it for TV, but it is what it is. And it's kind of cool to see him basically create two different challengers on the same tour and build it up to the big climactic finish.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he got along so well with Jess Ortega. Maybe discussions were held saying, I would love to have you back sometime. And maybe we can use you for the next tour as the focus for me. Like, you will be my big main event for the next tour. On television or something, where I used Carnera last time, or at least on this tour, but next tour I want to have you as my main foe. I'm just spitballing here because I'm not seeing into the future.
I don't know the next tour off the top of my head, so very interesting to see what happens next time around for sure.
Yeah, I don't have it either. We're kind of going through it. I made this document and I put information down, but I didn't absorb it and understand it in the time frame. So I can't even think ahead to go, this definitely happens. We're kind of reading it as it happens. And one of the things we have happening is from a newspaper on September 9th, headline, and you're probably going to see more of this. Top Japanese wrestler defies police. I'm just going to read the report. You can take it as you take it.
Wonder who this is about.
Yeah, a 235-pound professional wrestler, twice as big as most Japanese policemen today, ignored a police summons. Tokyo officers ordered wrestler Rikidozan, a national idol, to appear in a police station before noon to answer questions about a nightclub assault on a Dutch Airlines employee. The man mountain didn't show up, and a police spokesman said no one was sent to look for him. Quote, we will wait 2 or 3 days for him to show up, unquote. The spokesman told Kyoto News Agency. Rikidozan, short, but with arms like elephant legs, is suspected of beating Arnold M. Engel, 31 years old, an employee of KLM Royal Dutch Airlines, police said. Engel was floored, police said, in a popular Tokyo nightclub with a table lamp and Japan's fearsome karate drop, a type of rabbit punch. The Dutch Airlines man is recuperating in the hospital, but a KLM official said the company has no statement to make.
An
Syndicated News.
Cheap shot, man. Imagine that.
Oh, a Pearl Harbor job, should I say?
Kimura didn't see that coming.
No. Let's see. So that's the end of that. That's from Syndicated News, Saturday, September 10th, 1953.
So see, that's even back in the 50s, even in not just the United States where Hollywood was huge, but even in Japan in the 1950s, your popularity, we'll give him a few days to see if he shows up at the police station. Kind of interesting. I guess things work the same all over the world, Dan.
Wrestling is wrestling, I guess. Before the next tour starts, Rikidozan and Azumafuji will leave Japan and visit Southeast Asia without announcing it to the press. Do it in the dark of night. They wrestled in Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, New Delhi, and Penang. While they were there, Rikidozan invited their Asian opponents to Japan, no doubt thinking that would cut down the expenses of their next tour by not having to book as many American wrestlers.
Right.
Makes sense. Wrestlers who came to Japan to take part in the Asian Championship for the next tour included King Kong, Emil Saja, Saya. Syed Saif Shah of Pakistan, Dara Singh, and Tiger Joginder Singh of India. So they go on a tour of India without announcing it to anybody, and it turns out they invite all of them to be on the next tour. Shocking. And they've got to be pretty cheap.
I was going to say, hey, you guys are much more affordable. Why don't you come on over? We need new opponents to beat.
Yeah, and we'll hook you up because we'll wrestle on shows in your hometown and make some money for whatever the local promoter is, or you'll get paid. So why don't you come with us?
Right.
And this would lead directly to the Asia Championships Tour from
November 8th to November 22nd. Only 10 cards on this tour.
And this is a much shorter JWA tour, or is this just an Asian tour? Is this Japan?
JWA.
Okay.
We made it back to, I'm sorry, it is the Asia Championships because they're using guys from Asia.
Right.
But no, this is a JWA tour, and the guest foreigners are King Kong. I'll just call him King Kong.
We'll call him King Kong Czaya. Yeah, Tiger Joginder. Dara Singh,
Syed Saif Shah, and Harold Sakata.
Which we know.
Correct?
Yeah, Oddjob, absolutely. Yeah, he's been here before. Wasn't Oddjob part of that 51 tour?
He was.
Okay, so we haven't seen him in a while, but it's good to have Oddjob back here.
Mm-hmm. And he probably figured with only bringing 4 guys over from Asia, he needed a 5th guy because you got to fill out the cards. Maybe he's even realizing that if you only have 3 or 4 outsiders, your main and your semi-main are going to be the same every night, or virtually the same. So let's see. Let's jump right into the tour. The tour appeared like it was supposed to start on November 2nd, but Korme Koku Keegan, that show was postponed to the 14th of November. Mm-hmm. November 3rd show at Koku Keegan Sumo Hall was postponed to the 15th. Osaka Prefectural Gym, originally scheduled for November 4th, was postponed to the 19th, and the follow-up show on November 5th in Osaka Prefectural Gym postponed to the 20th. So
kind
now
of interesting. The first 4 days of the tour were all postponed till much later.
It would have been nice to know why. 4 separate shows all getting postponed. Looks almost like a couple weeks down the road. Uh-huh. Regardless, we're going to call this tour officially starting on November 8th. And this is in Toyama City Public Hall. Only 3,000 people in the City Public Hall, but it is a TV show. This is the second time now Radio Tokyo Television, or KR Television, would broadcast it, and it is a 2-hour, 15-minute time block, 7 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. Tuesday. It's right in the middle of prime time, and it is a live broadcast, and it appears that they had enough time to show the top 3 matches of the show. And this is where we start looking at the formation of titles for JWA.
Right, and not from America, not Hawaii titles, not Central America titles from Central America, not all these other Mediterranean, West Coast, whatever titles and things of that nature. This is actually Japanese-based titles.
Yep, and they have multiple leagues. They're establishing multiple championships at the same time. This first match that's televised is for the All Asia Tag Team Championship, and it's part of their league tournament.
Yeah, this is basically a tournament. I'm not going to try to figure this out. If you want to, you can. I know there's various matches going on.
I hate looking at brackets, and they may not even be real.
Yeah, I don't think they're real here in this instance. That's why I'm not touching this thing with a 10-foot pole. When it's over, I know what finals means, and I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's not as bad as that. What was it? A junior championship or a cruiserweight championship in WCW in 1998 that had the same guy losing 3 times in a row and then going to the finals.
There was, during that Russo, when they were just going out of business era, they created a tag title tournament, and they got halfway through it and realized none of it made any sense, and they restarted it. And that's another reason why WCW went out of business, guys. But that's another story for another day.
Another podcast for another day. So this All Asia Tag Team Championship League match, Azumafuji and Kokichi Endo. Not a bad team. You got Rikidozan's number 1 man who he can be trusted on, and Azumafuji, the rising star, defeat the team of Surigami and Sunagoro Rashomon, the big tall guy, 2 straight falls.
Yeah, and we'll come back to him again, but I just want to point out, because we just keep calling him the big tall guy, for those who don't know, we don't have a whole lot on him, but there's some pictures out there of him, and he was a really big guy that you would have thought Rikidozan would have looked at as a promoter and said, I can make money off this guy, like promoters did later with an Andre the Giant. I'm not saying this guy was athletic. I don't know a whole lot about him, but based on his size, especially in Japan, back in the 50s, you look at this guy, like you said, maybe 6'8" or something like that, and you would have thought, I can make money off this guy, but he doesn't have the greatest win-loss record.
No, Ray, hey, if Rikidozan's not going to push this guy, we're going to push him on this podcast. Rashomon should have been pushed. He's a lost opportunity. We have another league that's going on, the All Asia Heavyweight Championship League. And they have
round system.
Round system. Wow, that's really strange. Maybe that's more acclimated to what they do in Asia. regardless, Dara Singh defeats Syed Saif Shah in the 5th round, 1 minute and 6 seconds into the 5th round. So you have outsider against outsider. So no native guys end up losing that one. We'll take that. I really don't want to see the brackets for these tournaments. This is making me sad already. We have a second All Asia Tag Team League match with Rikidozan and Harold Sakata. Interesting, versus King Kong and Tiger Joginder.
That's a draw.
That's weird. A 61-minute time limit draw.
Both teams advance.
Oh, that's true.
I'm not even going to try to make sense.
I'm already not looking forward to the
we're
end
just going
of
to keep
this
rolling.
tour.
We're just going to roll.
The only thing I'm looking at is 61-minute draw, 7-minute rounds. This means that match went almost 40 minutes, and the match before it went under 20, so an hour and 40. You could almost get all of these complete. So for a 2-hour, 50-minute time slot, you may have seen 3 complete matches on television that show. The next night, on November 9th in Nagoya in Kaneyama Gym, 7,000 people, so a bigger house to watch TV. Radio Tokyo Television gives them a 2-hour time slot, and NHK gives them a 2-hour and 5-minute time slot. Let's see. We've got Kokichi Endo defeating Harold Sakata in the first televised match by DQ. That doesn't have anything to do with the tournament. The next match is an All Asia Heavyweight Championship League match, and these are 7-minute rounds. They can go up to 6 rounds. King Kong and Dara Singh go to a 6-round time limit draw. So you're looking at 42 minutes in the ring between Singh and Kong.
Kind of brave of them on TV to put 2 guys, non-Japanese guys. We haven't seen that because remember, whenever the Americans come, Dan, we never see them wrestle one another unless somebody's teaming with someone, which we really don't see either. But here with these guys, the Asian guys that they're bringing up from Singapore and places like that, they're working each other.
Yeah, and I apologize for not having the information to see what the brackets are or how it was established. Maybe they let off with this and saying, just let you know, everybody's got to face everybody like round robin, or here are brackets. I don't know how the tournament was laid out, but maybe this was a foregone conclusion with the way the tournament was drawn up, that they would have foreign invaders facing foreign invaders. We'll just have to keep track of who's winning them so we know how they get pushed towards the end. We have a Hawaiian tag team title. That thing hasn't gone away yet.
I was going to say, here's a fun main event. We're in the middle of an all-Asia tag team league, but we've got another belt. Let's just bring that out. Let's make things less confusing here.
This is 6 months after they lost this tag team title, and they're still shopping it around like they've got it. Rikidozan Azumafuji defeating Syed Saif Shah and Tiger Joginder, 2 falls to 1. Rikidozan with the 2 falls, and Singh pins Azumafuji for the only fall for the Rikidozan team. Interesting that they would feature the Hawaiian tag title above an All-Asia. I'll give them this much credit. At least they didn't have a tag team league match underneath. It was the heavyweight league, so right. At least they didn't take the shine off of their own tag league when they're trying to establish their own belt.
Right.
The third night in a row, third television episode in the row, Nagoya, Kaneyama Gym. There's 4,000 with a question mark, so I'm not really sure what the attendance was for this television taping. We've got a 2-hour time slot, Radio Tokyo Television, or KR Television, and that is enough time to have the top 3 matches. Dara Singh would win by DQ over Harold Sakata in 22 minutes, 37 seconds. So we've got Dara Singh, again, facing somebody from the outsider group coming in, and it's not even part of a league match for the Heavyweight Championship League. So go figure. We do have an All-Asia Tag Team Championship League match with King Kong and Tiger Joginder, and they defeat the team of Azumafuji and Kokichi Endo in 2 falls to 1. Azumafuji gets the only fall for his side. Singh would pin Azumafuji in the second fall, and Kong would pin Endo to win the match outright. In the main event, we have an All-Asia Heavyweight Championship League match. It's Rikidozan. That is so strange.
2 straight falls.
How do you win in 2 straight falls when it's a round match?
What are you asking me for? I didn't book this shit.
I hate everything.
Well, we shouldn't go so deep into these shows, I don't think. I think we should just kind of skim and get to the championship, unless we got some TV or something because I don't want to confuse the people.
No, these were all television episodes. That's the only reason I'm taking the time for it. Otherwise, I'll just go by just straight results. I understand why they did it 2 falls to nothing, though, because in 4 rounds, in the 4th round, a minute 20 seconds in, Rikidozan gets a KO over Shah. And then after that, Shah is unable to continue. So in a way, he's looking at it as he gets 2 straight falls, but that's not the metric by which you achieve a victory in this particular
How do you have another
league.
fall after a knockout? Totally gets
I wonder if it's like you can't get up for the bell for the next round.
I don't know. I see multiple falls in future matches here, so that's why I'm trying not to make sense of any of this.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
I'm getting angry. I'm a little bit angry.
Nice. All right. November 11th, I'm just going to look at the league matches. King Kong defeats Shah. Again, 2 falls. I hate you. 3rd round, he gets a pin. 4th round, within 16 seconds, Shah is unable to continue. Shah is unable to do much in this tournament.
Yeah.
And the main event of that show is another heavyweight championship league match. Rikidozan defeating Tiger Joginder. I don't even want to talk about it. It's just annoying me. November 12th, Kanagawa City Gym in Hiratsuka. 8,000 people. Another league match. Dara Singh wins over Tiger Joginder. Pacific Coast Tag Team title. Rikidozan and Kokichi Endo.
Well, they were the Pacific Coast Tag Team Champions before, like the last tour. That was the made-up.
Multiple fake championships there.
We're on 17 tag team titles right now in Japan, I do believe.
It is absolutely ridiculous. And we thought Mid-Atlantic was a tag.
I can't wait till they unify all these belts. Be like freaking Ultimo Dragon in the mid-90s, man. Just walking around with 14 belts on.
I loved Ultimo Dragon. He was great. That spinning that arm bar that he would spin around and turn into a roll-up.
Everything he did was awesome.
It's too bad he got hurt. King Kong and Shah lost against Rikidozan and Kokichi Endo. But there is a note, and this is good for the world and wrestling in general. This was the last time Rikidozan and Endo defended the fake Pacific Coast tag title.
Which was also the first time they defended them in like a year. So yeah, I love the notes here. It ceased to exist after this match. I love it. It didn't get retired. It ceased to exist.
Yeah, the verbiage is hilarious.
Well, it's true though. It's damn true.
And it should cease to exist. Enough of this. You're running all this tournament to have your own title, so just pay attention to that one. And they would on November 14th in Tokyo in Kurume Kokukigen Sumo Hall, 18,000 people,
TV,
and this one is televised. Nippon's got a 2-hour time slot, 7:30 to 9:30. NHK television gets 7:30 to 9:45. The 15-minute overrun on NHK television. We get time for the top, is it 2 matches or 3 matches? It's got to be 3 matches, but it's hard to tell.
I see 3 matches bolded here, so it's possible.
Yeah, I see it. I'm looking at it weird. Azumafuji and Kokichi Endo defeat the team of Surigami and Yoshino Sato, 2 straight falls. Azumafuji pins Surigami.
That is a fun match because all 4 of those guys are, fighting for contention, so to speak, at least the affection of Rikidozan. All 4 of these guys are kind of hanging around, right around that semi-main slot, somewhere around there.
Yeah, every one of them is an up-and-comer. The only one I'm not seeing here is, why am I not remembering his name? He was where is he on this tour?
Toyonobori?
Thank you. Where is he? Do you see him?
I did see him earlier in the tour. I'm not sure.
I don't see him on this tour.
No, maybe not. Rashomon is on the tour. Yeah, good call.
And maybe he got hurt. Who knows? But the other 4 up-and-comers are all in one match at the same time. So that's a
fun
and they go
match.
22 minutes. This is a great match. Probably gives you an opportunity to put everyone over to some extent. We're going to go back to the All Asia Heavyweight Championship League. King Kong will defeat Tiger Joginder, and I'm not going to tell you how because they call it by falls, even though it's by rounds. We have an All Asia Tag Team Championship League. The televised main event, Rikidozan and Haru Sakata defeating the team of Dara Singh and Syed Saif Shah. 2 falls to 1. Shah takes both falls. Sakata pins Shah on the first fall, so Sakata gets a fall, and Rikidozan gets the final fall to win the match for his side. And that's in front of 18,000 people on TV. The next night on the 15th, again, Kurume Kokukigen. This one's only 11,000 people, but they still say that it's sold out. You can have it in Kuku in front of 18,000. They don't mention a sellout, but in front of 11,000, the same venue, they can call it a sellout. Go figure.
Well, it was positioned different. They had a big Titantron that time.
That is true. Good point. They were cutting edge with technology back then.
Absolutely.
Radio Tokyo Television, KRTV, 2-hour time slot. They would have time to air the top 2 matches. The All Asia Tag Team Championship League of Dara Singh and Syed Saif Shah, defeating the team of Azumafuji and Kokichi Endo, 2 falls to 1. And in the All Japan Tag Team Championship League Final.
Final. That means finally this tag team tournament is over. We're going to crown champions right now.
I'm just glad that we don't have to backtrack and figure out if any of it made sense. We'll just assume it did, because the team of King Kong and Tiger Joginder would defeat the team of Rikidozan and Harold Sakata 2 falls to 1. Rikidozan gets the first fall with a pin over Joginder in 31 minutes 55 seconds. Kong would get the second fall with a count out of ring on Sakata in 9 minutes 43 seconds. And because of the out of ring status, the third fall in 0 seconds, Sakata is unable to continue. Kong's team is awarded the third fall, and they become the first All Asia Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, King Kong Czaya. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot on him outside the 1950s from Romania, man. But there are matches out there. We were talking about those matches, I think, not too long ago. There might be some in existence that maybe I can post on YouTube, or we can watch a match or 2 of his on upcoming videocast as well, perhaps against Rikidozan.
Yeah, I have evidence of an 8 VHS tape series of Rikidozan matches, and none of them run particularly long, but the first 3 are all King Kong matches. And I've seen him on magazine covers. Looks like a big, bulky dude, not the girth of Jess Ortega, but also in no way slender. So he looks like just a big, hairy guy, which I guess covers a lot of territory in the world of wrestling, because that's pretty much what they're populated with. But hopefully we can find some footage and find out who this guy's all about, because he and Rikidozan are going to have a long storied history against each other going forward. Yeah,
Rikidozan clearly saw something he liked in Czaya, because they work a few times, to say the least, in their career. But it's good to see we got results here in 1955, but also they have some matches on video. And I'm looking forward to kind of doing a little more digging into that whole situation there, because, again, much like Jess Ortega, I think Rikidozan goes around the world, working the States, working wherever, Singapore, wherever, all these other places that you mentioned. And he finds people that he works well with, and he's smart enough to bring them back to Japan so that everybody he works in Japan, it's a good match.
Yeah, at least he cares enough about putting on a good match that he picks these guys that he gets along well with in the States and in other parts of the world to put on the same performance or a similar performance in front of his Japanese fans.
And the match may have been 4 stars down there in Singapore, but now that it's in Japan, well, you know where I'm going with this. So,
how dare you? Uncle Dave would be so upset with you right now.
Well, I had to have a little fun here.
We kid because we care, right? I do have some information about this All Asia Tag Team Championship.
Okay.
That's from the Rikidozan Years book. The word all was engraved on the plates of the Asia and Japan tag team belts. However, the word all was seldom printed in the newspapers or magazines, or used on TV by commentators, or in the ring by the announcers. The titles were simply referred to as the Asia Tag Team Championship and the Japan Tag Team Championship. So that's just a little tidbit here. We move to the 19th of November, Osaka Prefectural Gym, 10,000 people. It is on television, and it is sold out. Nippon's giving it a 90-minute time slot, and that's enough to get the top 2 matches. So now the tournament for the tag title is done.
Right.
And we're going to continue moving forward with the Heavyweight Championship League. So in the semi-main event, the All Asia Tag Champions, King Kong and Tiger Joginder, will defeat the team of Azumafuji and Harold Sakata 2 falls to 1. Sakata takes 1 fall. Azumafuji takes the final fall. And the main event is the All Asia Heavyweight Championship League. with Rikidozan defeating Dara Singh. We're not at Tiger Jeet singing. Wait till we get there. That's going to be, we have a lot to say about him. But Dara Singh, Rikidozan defeats him in the sixth round, the final round, 55 seconds, and he pins him. So that's 42 minutes of a match there almost, and the other match goes darn near 40 minutes. You might get 2 complete matches, unedited, unexpurgated, on Nippon Television on this night.
So fun little finish here. I mean, we're not done with this tour yet, but we're getting close, and we've finished the tag team tournament. Now we have tag team champions. They presumably are defending it here. We'll pretend they are anyway. But the heavyweight title tournament continues on, and Rikidozan scores a win over Dara Singh as we move on, Dan.
Yep, we're almost to the end there. We're almost there. We move on to November 20th, again in Osaka Prefectural Gym. Again, 10,000 people, again on television. This one is Nippon TV, 7:45 to 9:30, so almost a 2-hour time slot. Enough time to have the final 2 matches. One is for, oh, don't you dare do that. Oh, no, that's right. I thought it was another tag league match. It's like, don't you dare do that. We already got tag champions.
Right.
This is for the All Asia Heavyweight Championship League. I apologize. Tiger Joginder defeats Syed Steve Shah in what looks to be 2 minutes into the 5th round. He gets a pin. So I guess you could win 2 ways where you need to get
You're
pins.
trying too hard.
Maybe
there's 3 falls in this match, by the way.
Yeah, it's
including the first match. Including the first fall, which says first or second round. So that's where I gave up with this one.
Well, speaking of giving up, it looks like they gave up on the All Asia Tag Team title because the main event of this television show is for the Hawaiian Tag Team title.
Well, it has to be.
Rikidozan and Azumafuji will go to a draw against the newly crowned, not even newly crowned because it's King Kong and Dara Singh. I apologize. 61-minute time limit. Rikidozan gets a fall over Singh, and Singh gets a fall on Rikidozan. 30 minutes and 2 seconds into the match, Singh pins Rikidozan. So Rikidozan's handing a pin to Singh. That's not bad. That's of note.
Yeah,
we made it to the final. The final match of this tour. It appears November 22nd. This is Kokukigen Sumo Hall, 15,000 people, and it's not televised. I don't understand why. The main event is the finals of the All Asia Heavyweight Championship League. And as you might imagine, we've been hyping it up. Rikidozan, for whatever reason, we don't even know, faces King Kong, and they go to a 60-minute draw with an extension, 60-minute extension. Rikidozan, 30 minutes, 50 seconds, KO.
Wow,
this could not have been
reads like a 90-minute match?
I have a quote from the book, hopefully.
Thank God. I hope this clears it up.
There is a note here. Rikidozan becomes the first champion. A 90-minute match? Is that even possible? By virtue of his victory over King Kong, Rikidozan became the first Asian heavyweight champion. The Japanese heavyweight title, which Rikidozan had created less than a year before, was quietly placed into mothballs and never mentioned again. And I have no other information about it. It looks like a 90-minute match to me. 60 minutes with the extension.
Wow, what an extension. Like, later on, 5 more minutes. Now it's like, no, well, we went 60. Let's do another 60. Why not? And it does go another 31 minutes. Unbelievable. Rikidozan crowned the first ever All-Asian heavyweight champion, defeating King Kong Czaya in the main event. And I'm with you. For all the storytelling they tell with their TV shows, episode to episode, for lack of a better term, I call them episodes, like with the build-up to the Carnera match we saw later, it was later in that tour with Jess Ortega, the final match wasn't aired on TV, just like the finals of this title tournament wasn't aired on TV. So even though they've really been utilizing television to tell storylines, it still feels like they're saving their big blow-off for the final match or the final card on the tour, whether it's televised or not.
Yep, and there can be logic behind that, but it wouldn't apply in this case because they're drawing 20,000 people to the TV tapings. It's not as if, I don't need to go pay money for a ticket because it's going to be on TV. That's what American wrestling saw in the late 40s, early 50s when there was so much televised wrestling that the houses started coming down. This one, your TV tapings are drawing crazy. Why are you not having this 90-minute match on TV? It could have been the only match on the show.
Right.
But maybe if it was, maybe it would have been a giveaway that it was going to go long. I don't know. This does not make sense to me, because I'd like to think that Rikidozan becoming the first champion, it would have been nice to have that on video.
Oh, well, there's no doubt about it. I would have liked to have seen that damn... I mean, there's going to be Rikidozan, Jess Ortega matches too, but there's these big blow-off main event style matches, and they're just not being televised, and it sucks, especially for your first ever major championship, like you just said, here in Japan. It's unbelievable that you would drop the ball on that, although we will get some matches between those two on film. But man, this show we really filled out almost nearly 2 hours thus far here in the year of 1955. I couldn't believe we have this much more to cover just in 55 alone, but it looks like there's still a page or two of some information here, another card or two to touch on, maybe another excerpt here if you want to run through those real quick, Dan, before we finish up.
Yeah, not much left to go. And these two shows are more of Rikidozan Dojo shows, not traditional shows like they're going on tour. But before we get to that, there's just a little bit more info about Rikidozan and his status in Japan at the end of 1955. As a national hero now, he's being claimed. Rikidozan was given leading roles in several films, but some reporters actually reported on what he was like behind the scenes. Quote, his fame was only a false image. Here it comes. Didn't take long. You build him up and you knock him down. In his actual life, he was nothing more than a bad drunk. He sometimes got tangled up with thugs in a bar or argued with taxi drivers over a trifle. In those cases, he often resorted to violence. More than likely, the police were under pressure from influential politicians who supported Rikidozan, who told the police to overlook his follies, most of which were kept from public knowledge. A few of Rikidozan's faults, however, came to light, and non-wrestling fans frowned upon the national hero. And here's the part that's really interesting. This is 1955, ladies and gentlemen. You may have grown up hearing something about this.
Kids, don't try this at home.
Thank you. You did it for me. TV wrestling blamed for deaths in Japan. Wow. This is from Syndicated News, Saturday, November 26, 1955, almost 70 years ago. They're warning kids about watching pro wrestling and emulating it. Television wrestling matches are getting the blame for a wave of serious and even fatal injuries to Japanese boys. Western-style pro roughhouse wrestling has become popular in Japan. The throngs of youngsters crowd around public street corner TV sets to watch the matches. Then the boys try the pro tactics and get hurt. Parents and teachers have complained that the telecast pro matches are to blame. A new outcry against TV wrestling arose after reports of 2 new accidents Wednesday. An 11-year-old elementary school boy died after he was felled by a schoolmate's drop kick, a flying kick used by pro wrestlers. A 13-year-old junior high school boy was injured critically while wrestling with friends. To warn the boys against the dangers involved in imitating their mad idols, Japanese telecasters planned to bring Rikidozan, popular Japanese wrestler, to the screen. Rikidozan, who last Tuesday scored an impressive victory over the huge 400-pound King Kong in an Asian title match, will urge kids to leave the pro-style wrestling to the pros.
There you go.
And
boy, we'll be hearing that for decades to come, huh?
Yes, we'll hear it when we were growing up watching wrestling.
That's right, yeah.
In addition to this story, this also came from Syndicated News, Saturday, November 26, 1955. Japanese wrestlers' inspiration deadly. Japan's 3 television networks agreed yesterday to issue a joint nationwide appeal to Japanese youngsters to refrain from emulating wrestlers they watch on their TV screens. The unique move was decided upon because of a TV-inspired wrestling craze, which has caused some death and many injuries among boys who grapple with each other all over the land.
Damn that wrestling.
Yep. We have 2 shows left for the year. They are both at Tokyo, Japan Pro Wrestling Center, the Rikidozan Jojo, and one of them is for the Japanese Light Heavyweight Championship qualifying tournament. We have Tomiya Miyajima defeating Isao Yoshiwara, Yusuf Turko defeating Teizo Watanabe, and Yoshino Sato, light heavyweight, defeating Takeo Kaneko. That's the light heavyweight. Now we have a junior heavyweight championship qualifying tournament with Osama Abe defeating Masayuki Ira
And Surigami, we know he's going to win against Yonataro Tanaka.
Spoiler alert.
And to round it off, we have a Japanese heavyweight championship top contender qualifying tournament, ostensibly to determine the next challenger for Rikidozan's Japanese heavyweight championship, or
All Asian
heavyweight.
Yes. Right.
All Asian. We have Tsunegoro Rashomon defeating Fujitayama and Azumafuji defeating Masaki Takamura. That was on the 20th, and the final show, we made it to the end of 1955, ladies and gentlemen. December 26th, the day after Christmas for us,
Boxing
in the
Day.
Rikidozan, Boxing Day for the Canadian Japanese. In the Japanese light heavyweight qualifying tournament, 6th place decision match, Asao Yoshiwara defeats Teizo Watanabe. In the 4th place decision match, Takeo Kaneko defeats Asao Yoshiwara. And then the top three spots.
Round robin final.
Round robin, like the 1997 All Japan Champion Carnival. Yusef Turko defeats Tomio Miyajima. Yoshino Sato defeats Tomio Miyajima. So that knocks out Tomio.
That's right.
You know what the final's going to be. And is it saying here it was postponed to January 9th because of Turko's injury? I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, because it doesn't have a result. So the final didn't happen. Yoshino Sato versus Turko, the match would not occur until next year because Turko got injured leading up to the final.
Right. No, we got to wait and see a few more weeks to see what happens there.
You have to wait till the next episode to see what happens. So we have the Japanese Junior Heavyweight Championship qualifying tournament. There's a 3rd place decision match with Yonataro Tanaka defeating Masayuki Ira. And in the final,
no round robin.
No round robin here. There weren't that many people in the junior heavyweight, I guess.
Right.
Compared to the light heavyweight. Surigami defeats Osama Abe 18 minutes, 44 seconds with a pin to become the first Japanese junior heavyweight champion. The final match of this show, final 2 matches actually, these are for the Japanese heavyweight top contender match against Rikidozan. 3rd place decision match, Masaki Takamura defeats Fujitayama to take the 3rd spot. And in the final, Azumafuji pins Tsunegoro Rashomon. So that makes him the top contender for Rikidozan's title. So now we're leading up to a Rikidozan versus Azumafuji. I need to remind you, he's been wrestling for 8 months.
Right. And now he hasn't just received a title shot, he's earned himself the top contender spot against Rikidozan in that Asian heavyweight championship. And this is his tag team partner many times, more so than not, but now he's in contention for the title. It's going to be very interesting to see how 56 plays out with a lot of these guys, especially Surigami now a champion. We're going to see who the light heavyweight champion's going to be. We're crowning champions. We're going to see who their opponents are going to be. Are they going to be just guys coming and going off the cards? Are they going to be married to these guys for tours? It's going to be very interesting to see how all of this plays out. And I'm honestly curious. I haven't looked ahead at all. I'm curious to see how quickly they can bring back the Asian tag team champions since they're not necessarily from Japan.
That is true. It's interesting to me to figure out when they're going to get a chance to even get those back. One thing about these 2 shows, since they're held in the Rikidozan Dojo, you heard all the names I mentioned. None of them are outsiders. So I'm thinking this is a pretty cheap show to run. Most of these guys are living in the dojo, if it's anything like the old dojo system. So for them to get in the ring and put on a show is pretty cheap for Rikidozan to do. I don't have attendances for this show, but that's pure profit for whatever he could have brought in if he did sell tickets to them. I'm assuming he did.
Yeah, and he didn't have to pay himself, so he made a lot of money.
Good point. He didn't even have to show up. He wasn't even there.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we've wrapped up 1955. It took longer than I thought, but there was more information than I thought.
Well, we were able to go back and touch on some things we hadn't done last time. Plus, I enjoyed talking a little bit about the magazines that are kind of breaking out around this time. So that was a fun way to start off the show. We looked into 2 tours that really took up most of the year here in Japan. And now we'll see where 56 takes us.
Yes, we will, but that's going to have to wait for next episode. We've run almost 2 hours now. So it's time to ring that bell, Ray. Class is going to be dismissed.
Well, we want to thank you so much once again, Dan, for being a part of this program. Without you, I don't know how well we could tell this story. I could bust my ass and still not get close to to what you brought to the table. So I just appreciate you so much for being here, for not just educating me, but educating everyone out there.
No, thanks for saying that. It's kind of lit a fire under my butt, and I've been doing more and more research trying to find little nuggets. A lot of it I've already discovered, but every little nugget, every little piece of gold I find, it really is satisfying to be able to add to the story. So I'm having a good time doing it, and I can't wait to do more of it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. We head into 1956. So much TV coming upon us. So many more talents coming. Lots more gaijin we're going to see coming over to Japan and these upcoming tours. Talk a little bit more about the ladies, I'm sure, in between when we can get the information about them as well. It's going to be a blast each and every time out here, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate your patronage. We appreciate the feedback that we get. Everybody that's really enjoying the stories and learning all about the history. I am as well. So I'm totally on board with them. And Dan, once again, as we close out the program, just thank you for being here, man. Can't wait to do this again.
Me too. Thanks very much, Ray. And ladies and gentlemen, class is dismissed.